Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Naomi, and today I have something really special for you. So this is something that I've actually never shared on this channel before. So what I'm sharing in the video that I have for you today is the question and answer portion of one of my live classes in my online studio, Move with Naomi. And after a recent class, somebody who was taking the class asked me about Cobra pose and about whether or not she was supposed to lock her arms and really what she was supposed to be doing with her shoulders and her spine. And she also asked about camel pose. And these are two poses that I think, have a lot of confusion around them when it comes to, generalized teaching of these two really fun, really powerful, and sometimes misunderstood backbends. So I spent about 7 or 8 minutes just giving her some basic instructions and answering her questions and, showing her why, we do Cobra in the way that we do, why we do camel pose in the way that we do to help best mobilize our spine and minimize low back strain, neck strain, and, and even sort of that locking of the arms and, even shoulder strain. So if you are interested in seeing me answer this question and break down these two poses, that's what I've got in this video ahead for you. Now, one little word of, just not warning, but just to note that after this class, I'd already taken my mic off, so the sound isn't quite as good as it is right now, nor is it as good in the class that I've recorded. So I spoke as loudly as I could so that my answers could be heard, but it's not going to be as clear and crisp as you might be used to. So just, keep that in mind, and I hope that you enjoy it regardless of the sound quality. So let's go check it out, and I'll see you on the other side. So in Cobra, and I think this is kind of important, first of all, Cobra pose is an actual backbend, right? Cobra pose, the difference between up dog and Cobra is that Cobra is a backbend. Up dog is more of an arm balance, right? Up dog, your arms are straight, your hips are elevated off the floor. It's not that you're not backbending, it's that the emphasis is much more on upper body strength and stability versus spinal mobility, okay? In Cobra, the idea is that having your hands wider apart is fine, first of all. You don't necessarily want them tied in. But when you're pushing up, right, what's really moving here is your spine, right? Your shoulders stay pretty steady in place. Okay, my elbows are bent, right? They're not locked, right? I'm not pushing away, right? Because if I push away, just spin around, like I'm breakdancing. If I push away, right, that could, depending on my elbows and yours do this, they flare outward. And then my spine's not actually moving, right? My spine is kind of locked in position. I can't go anywhere, right? So I want my elbows to stay bent so that my spine can move here, right? So you're not necessarily trying to push your arms straight or roll them out. You're trying to have freedom of movement there, right? So no, you do want your shoulder blades on your back. That's not wrong. Okay, that's not at all wrong. You absolutely want your shoulders on your back. It's not wrong if they're forward, right? But again, when your shoulders are moving inward towards your spine, okay, so think of it this way. If my shoulders are going forward off of my back, again, I get stuck, right? There's not much spinal mobility there, okay? If I draw my shoulder blades inward, right, that creates stability through my shoulders so that my spine can move, okay? Because, if you really think about it, one of the more, and this isn't what we're after in our classes, but one of the more advanced variations is can I curl back to get my head toward my toes? Because that's the back bend. You're not doing that in up dog. Does that make sense? Right? In up dog, you're never, if you're in up dog, you're not trying to get your feet to your head toward, you can't, right? You're locked in position. So keeping your shoulders on your back in that way, even having your elbows wider, that allows you, and again, what you're after, it's oh, there's the movement through my spine. When my arms are straight, even when I'm not pushing into the floor, it's a lot harder to move my spine. When my shoulders aren't on my back intentionally, it's a lot harder to move my spine because I'm locked somewhere else. Because in order to move your spine, your shoulder blades have to be going inward. Right? That helps create some stability in your upper body so that your spine itself can move.
I see.
But if you're locking your arms in this pose and in others, it makes it a lot harder for your spine to move.
Oh, okay.
So, and Cobra, in essence, is a backbend, right? Your spine is moving, okay? Nobody's going to ask you to try to get your feet to your head, least of all me, because I don't think that's important. But the reason that you can do that in Cobra pose and not in up dog, as an example, is that you lose spinal mobility when your arms are locked and straight there, even if your shoulders are on your back, because there's a limit to what you can do when your arms are pushed straight, right? Whereas when my shoulder blades are moving inward, my ribs can also move there, right? There's much more freedom of movement. Okay, so that's why I would say, rather than trying to like rotate out and like lock in place, you want more fluidity. Yeah, well, that's also a good question. Are you supposed to be holding your ribs in camel? Yes and no. Okay, you don't really want the movement to be coming from your ribs because then that can separate the different actions of your spine. Okay, so if I'm in camel and I'm just gonna, lay out my blanket for my knees because my knees are divas. If I'm in camel pose, okay, and I'll lift my shirt so it's a little bit more clear, I hope. Okay, so if I just let my ribs go forward and go into the back bend, again, I'm going to get stuck, right? Like, I can go back, but now I'm relying on my lumbar curve almost exclusively to get my hands to my heels. If I keep my ribs back, right, and it's not like tucking my tail or anything, if I just keep my ribs back and try not to move them as much, right, then I can do that thing with my shoulders again, right, like you do in Cobra, which is why we did them both in this class today, right, because they're effectively the same action, different position of your legs, okay? So if I keep my ribs back and draw my shoulder blades in, now I can move my spine, okay? Now, will my ribs go with me? Yes, they will. Like, I'm not going to keep them back and then but if I can keep my ribs here instead of like letting my ribs flare forward, if I can keep my ribs back and my pelvis more aligned, then I can draw my shoulder blades in, lift my chest, right? And then, my back bend is through my entire spine and not like two separate parts of it, right? I'm not leaving the middle thoracic out in service of the upper thoracic and lumbar spine and the ribs protruding. Okay, you're welcome. I hope that's helpful. I hope that answered your questions.
It did in a big way, and I have for a long time.
Yeah. Did you learn something new about Cobra and camel pose? I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into, really what these two backbends are all about, how to best align in them so that you can make the most out of your strength, but also experience the full freedom of your mobility in your spine. And, this is the kind of thing that I really enjoy doing. And this is why, even though I don't teach, publicly anymore in terms of teaching in a studio, this is why I really love teaching online, because I can still get into the nitty-gritty of these questions that you might have about why we do things in a certain way, or what might be, if not the optimal alignment in a pose, because I don't think that's going to be true for every single person, but what might be beneficial alignment for certain people in certain poses, depending on, what they've got going on in their own bodies. Now, there's one thing that I didn't say really clearly, and this was about Cobra, that I think is really important, okay? And I want to clarify it right now so that there isn't any misunderstanding. When your arms are straight, what happens is your shoulders actually can move a lot more, and that requires your spine to kind of stop moving a little bit, right? If something is going to move, something else has to be stable in order to support and hold it. So, if you were doing a pose like up dog or Cobra, If your arms are fully straight and your shoulders are going forward, there isn't anything inherently wrong with that. You're not misaligned, you're not going to hurt yourself, but you really won't be able to move your spine as much as when your shoulder blades are moving inward toward one another on your back and when the head of your arm bones are moving backward. So that's just one little note that I think is really important, not just for Cobra, but also for camel pose, which is the other pose that I talked about in this post-class Q&A. Now, if you have questions like this, I would love for you to join me in my online studio, Move with Naomi, where I offer 3 live classes weekly and where I stay after every single class to answer questions just like this one and to give you more insights into the poses that you are curious about, that you might be challenged by, that you want to learn more about and become more proficient in, or at least more aware in. So if that is something that you are interested in, please join me in my online studio, Move with Naomi. You can join me live and ask these questions, or you can watch the videos and send me a question. You could even send me a form video, and I would send you a response in video form, giving you more insights into that pose so that you could figure it out on your own. If you want to join me and Move, you can check out in the description. I have a coupon for 50% off your first month, and I would love to see you in my online studio there and get to know you a little better and answer all of the questions that you have about movement. So for now, thanks for tuning in here. Again, I hope this was useful and informative, and I will see you back on the mat again really soon. Until then, bye everyone.